Hello, everyone. This is Bill Wilson, Senior Editor of Supermarket News, with another episode of Supermarket News Off the Shelf. And the topic today is grocery theft. In New York City, the New York City Council is looking to ban the use of face recognition software. And we have Avi Kaner here. He is the co-owner of Morton Williams. They are a supermarket chain, mainly in Manhattan. So, Avi, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
So, talk about, what the city council is doing aside. Talk about theft in your area and the situation there and the status of it. Is it getting really bad? Is it kind of in the middle, or how's it like?
Sure. It has never been worse. And before we even talk about facial recognition, I'd like to give you some background on this. We have a new district attorney in New York City for about a year and a half or so, who's proclaimed that stealing is basically an entitlement. Anyone is allowed to go into any retail store in New York City, steal up to $1,000 and not get arrested and not get prosecuted. So it's a free-for-all now. And you see many drugstores have shut down around the city, and now supermarkets are closing as well. Supermarkets work on very tight net margins, and this extra level of theft is basically wiping out any profits that supermarkets might have. So supermarkets are looking at using facial recognition not to store information about customers, but only to store information about thieves that are caught. If you catch a thief, you take the picture of the thief, you put it in your computer system. If that thief tries to enter any one of your stores, the manager in that store would get a text message letting him or her know that the thief is in the store. The manager would go to the thief and ask the thief to please leave the store. That's all it is. But incredibly, New York City is saying, look, we're not going to arrest them, we're not going to prosecute them, and we're not going to let you use this technology to catch them. And I was saying before, it's real political insanity. It has nothing to do with the right or the left. It's just insane. Like, how can you have lawlessness like this? And it's just an unsustainable situation.
Do you have any idea? You don't have to be specific or anything, but as far as what this costs, maybe not just you, but like grocers in your area, what is the cost?
Well, the cost is, just to give you an idea, cost-wise, it can be as much as 2% of gross margins. So for every $100 you sell, an additional $2 is stolen. And as you know, supermarkets work on net margins that are at or slightly above that amount, depending on the location. New York City is an especially expensive place to do business in. The rents in New York City are the highest in the nation, and then the city, adding insult to injury, the city then imposes even a commercial rent tax if your store is in Manhattan below 96th Street. That means if you're paying a landlord rent, say $2 million a year rent, the city goes to you, the tenant, and tells the tenant, now you, the tenant, have to pay the city this additional tax. So combine the high cost of living, the high cost of renting space in the city, combine that with lawlessness and the inability to use technology to help us stop this lawlessness. The city is basically saying not only is it not business friendly, it is not people friendly. It is not friendly to the people who live in New York City. We have people coming into our stores with baseball bats and knives to steal. Wow. And endangering our staff, endangering the customers. And many of our stores are open 24 hours a day. And you ask, well, why are you open 24 hours a day? Because we're in New York City. New York City is a city that never sleeps. There are people who work shifts. There are people who work in hospitals, the overnight shift, public safety works around the clock. And our stores provide a safe place for customers and people, public service workers to come in and get what they need. And now the city is endangering them. We had a situation last night. A guy came into one of our stores at 3:30 in the morning with a baseball bat and wiped out our entire health and beauty aid section. And this is the same guy 3 times in the past 2 weeks, and nothing is being done about it. It's not being arrested, not being prosecuted. He's stealing less than $1,000 at a time. And welcome to New York.
So that's just, I don't really have words for what you just said, but what do you think is the motivation behind this call from the city council? Is it more they're concerned about the privacy of shoppers, or like you said, is it strictly politically motivated?
A lot of this started with what happened in Madison Square Garden, where this kind of technology was used by the owners of Madison Square Garden to prevent people they did not want to enter into sporting events or concert events. And I think that made a lot of that was the publicity. And from a political perspective, these council members probably thought, hey, we should try to protect the privacy of these citizens, and it's not right to stop them from going into a sporting event. But this is very different here. This is, we're not storing anyone's information except for thieves. And we're not storing their names, their identities, their addresses, or phone numbers. We don't have access to any of that. All we're storing is, it's like taking a Polaroid picture of a thief and putting it by the time clock and letting employees know if someone like this, if this person comes in, stop him or her. This is just using technology to do the same thing. The other thing the city council members are concerned about is that this can create discrimination towards minorities. So I don't quite understand why that would be the case. If you look at a Polaroid picture, what's the difference? So I think they probably have good intentions, as most public servants do, and they just have not thought of this through.
So do you have this kind of software in your stores?
So we have security systems in all of our stores, but not the facial recognition systems. We just got our first proposal, actually our second proposal, and likely the one we're going with, to begin the installation.
So what are you relying on now to try and, prevent theft and fight theft?
What we're relying upon now are our employees monitoring and seeing these activities. We have security guards standing by the exit door, sometimes including off-duty police officers, where we spent $1 million last year. I mean, that is not sustainable. We're paying $50 an hour for someone to stand at the exit. And you have someone standing at the exit. Say you have a supermarket, an urban supermarket with 10 grocery aisles. You can't have 10 security guards, one in each grocery aisle. So we really rely on our employees. We rely on things like, in the summer, someone coming in wearing a big coat, wearing a mask, so you can identify strange or suspicious people and follow them in the store, but that leads to mistakes. In other words, it could be an 85-degree day, but someone likes wearing a parka when it's 85 degrees out, and then they get upset that someone is following them and they think they're being profiled in some way. We've stopped. We no longer allow customers to shop using reusable bags in the store, where they just take items off the shelf, put it immediately into the reusable bags. That helps a little, but that helps more with like petty type theft. These are organized. You'll get five people coming in simultaneously and knocking out your store. And it's organized crime. They take this merchandise somewhere where they sell it to someone who has a lot of these people working for him, and they monetize it that way. It's really unbelievable that you have actions of the district attorney in New York actually supporting organized crime.
So you said you're looking to install, your first system. How much money is this going to cost? I mean, have you just looked at one store, or have you looked at a network of stores?
Yeah. So we looked at we're building a new store now. So we have a proposal to put in that store, and we have a proposal to put it into one of our existing one particular store that's very a high theft area. And we have the proposal. The proposal is actually fairly, it's not bad. I mean, it's not that much more than a conventional security system. I think the technology has evolved and has become a lot more cost effective. And I spoke with fellow supermarket owners who have such systems, and they swear by them.
Talk about your workforce, because that has to lead to some sleepless nights, knowing that your workers are constantly put in the firing line, so to speak. I mean, do you have problems with retention, and how do you, boy, it takes the right kind of individual to deal with that stuff on a daily basis? How does that
Sure.
work?
Sure. So we have wonderful employees who are really dedicated, devoted to their jobs, and want to do the right thing. There was a story recently about a Lululemon store where actually employees got fired because they chased a thief, right? I would
Wow.
never, I mean, we tell our employees not to confront thieves, not to get physical or violent. But the employees take this to heart. And sometimes the employees do try to stop the thieves, get into altercations with them. And it's hard to blame them. I mean, if I were you or I were one of these employees in the store and this was happening right in front of you, you try to stop it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So it's difficult, especially especially in the evening hours. It's hard to get employees to agree to work during those hours.
Yeah. So you testified at a hearing recently.
Yes.
Can you describe the mood at that hearing? Was it pretty tense?
The mood, this was like one of the most ridiculous hearings I've ever attended in my life. One of the council members asked, you had all these groups there. You had these groups, these ultra, I wouldn't even call it ultra liberal because that would be an insult to liberals, and I'm socially liberal myself.
Yeah.
Um, these are like wacko. They asked one of these groups, said, "Oh, so New York City Police Department uses facial recognition. So what happens if a man, a killer, kills a woman and her two children, and then he's out loose on the city streets? Would you support using facial recognition on the city streets to identify that killer, and so the police can nab him?" The answer was no, we would not support that because that's because of his privacy, and it's a slippery slope. And you do it for catch murderer, you'll then use it to catch anyone else.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess these are fine people who have good intentions, but they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to impose they're far out, I'm not even using left, far out beliefs, and trying to impose them on the general public, and thereby hurting public safety.
So what is your gut telling you? Do you think will indeed pass? What are you saying? What are you seeing there?
But my gut is telling me that it will pass, but with caveats. They'll come up with a method of allowing it under certain situations. And one extreme is to have every single customer who comes into the store sign a piece of paper that says, I realize that my image is being used to match against a database of thieves. But imagine an average supermarket that gets
Yeah.
2,000 customers a day. Imagine each one stopping to sign this piece of paper. That'll never happen. I think at a minimum, having signage, letting people know how that this is being done. And also, I would be supportive of regulations to ensure that private data is not being stored locally, except in the case of these situations where you have thieves and you're trying to stop them.
So are you even prepared, or maybe you're a part of a group of owners of supermarkets to take legal action against the city? Or is that just like, man, that's too much? You're talking about too much money. It's just not worth it.
I'm more concerned with finding supplies of cherries.
Yeah.
By the way, cherries are about to come in season from multiple
Okay.
sources
Oh,
at a great price. Everyone's going to be psyched about this. But
yeah.
I'm more concerned about that than suing the city.
Yeah.
I think that's a hopeless case.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Well, anything else you want to add? We're really hoping to create awareness for your situation. So hopefully there'll be other media outlets that get hooked onto the story and reach out to you and help you fight your cause there.
Thank you. So retailers are part of the community. The community, if you look at Manhattan, community exists of residents who live there, commuters who come into work every day, and businesses. So it's kind of like a three-legged stool, and it's got to be balanced and work together to create a city where people want to live, work, and play in. But the moment the city knocks out one of the legs, the stool cannot stand on two legs, and then the city declines very rapidly. So it's good to have good intentions, and I believe city council does have good intentions, but it's important to also realize that we're part of a community, and you want New York City to be here for everyone into the future.
Avi Kaner, co-owner of Morton Williams Supermarkets. Thank you so much for joining us. I really wish you good luck, in your cause. You stand behind a great one. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.